say hi.
Okay, we might start gathering people for the AI track. So just give it another minute maybe while people are being hunted in from the outside. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So welcome everybody. This year we celebrate the 10th annual Atlantec Festival with events running across 10 days, 60 plus speakers hosted in a variety of venues across the whole of Galway. And here in Bailey Allen this afternoon we have you joining us for the AI track. So today's theme for our exciting afternoon is Navigating the AI Revolution, Strategies for Success. To bring this theme to life, we have speakers and presenters from a variety of backgrounds, including law, engineering and academia. This afternoon we'll focus on three key areas. Laura Broydal joins us from Brussels to discuss the impact of the EU AI law on our future work in artificial intelligence. Then we have a panel of three experienced industry reps discussing how to put AI into operation with some lightning presentations, followed by Q&A led by Sarah, who's also a member of our ITAG AI Forum. And then finally, we have a broad spectrum of established guests discussing about the future in AI. And while there's a lot of uncertainty about what the impacts of AI will be, it's never too early to start preparing for that. So hopefully this afternoon will be of interest to everybody, whether you're working in AI already or you're just about to start that journey. Part that I didn't want to do, but here I am. I'm Karen Conway. I join you from Fidelity Investments, where I work in asset management. In the area I work in, we build custom-built software to maximise our returns on investments for our clients. So we just try and make more money for them all. Outside of my day job, I'm also co-chair of the Women in Technology group in Fidelity Ireland. And of course, my other part-time job is that I actually work for Carl & Cawley in ITAG. So I am on the AI ethics side of the ITAG AI Forum. So we arrange, and to watch the space, we are arranging specialised talks later in the year on AI, ethics and law, so just watch that space. Because we've already heard Andrew and Keith mentioning about responsible AI, so it is something that we need to take a little bit more seriously. Of course, here we are in the university. We did talk earlier, when we were talking previously about Paul referenced upskilling in terms of AI to ensure that it is something that we need to be doing. And the first courses we're kind of really only seeing coming out since 2018. The courses here in the University of Galway, just to make you aware, is we do have a Masters in AI, and also we have a level 9 PG cert in AI for professionals. So look at that one a little bit. So personally I've completed this course, so and it is an excellent grounding in the AI foundations. And the best part is you actually don't have to do any exams, and you don't actually have to turn up to lectures. It's all fully online, and it is remote as well. You do have to do some assignments, so I'm sorry to tell you. But the one thing about this course is, though, it was referenced earlier by Paul Healy that there's a huge collaboration between industry and the university here. And I sit on the board for this course as an industry rep, and they do really want to understand what is needed from an industry perspective and make sure that we're touching on all of that. So I would highly encourage you to have a look at this course, given that it can be done online or at home, etc. One other slight thing is that micro-credentials are now available. So even if you didn't want to do a whole course, you can actually just pick one module. So if you had an interest in the machine learning or natural language processing or the AI ethics and law, you can take that module individually as well outside of that. Next up, so our key speaker for today is Laura Broadwell. So thank you for joining us from Brussels, Laura. Laura is a Senior Associate in EU Data Regulatory Practice of Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati. She's based in Brussels, and she specialises in advising clients on digital regulatory issues. Beyond GDPR compliance, Laura has expertise in a wide range of data regulations, including the Digital Services Act, the Developing AI Act, and in IS2. She's considerable experience advising on innovative technologies in fintech, open banking, gaming, and biometrics. She is recognised in the Legal 500 and is a certified information privacy professional. And Laura, above all, prides herself on her true passion for her practice. Laura will present to us today practical strategies for integrating regulatory expectations into your life cycle, and she'll also provide insights into the key areas of interest in this rapidly evolving field. By attending, you'll get a clearer understanding of immediate actions, pitfalls to avoid, and anticipated developments in the AI landscape as it continues to evolve. With that, I'm going to open the floor to Laura. Come join us, please. And if you have any questions, Laura will open for Q&A at the end of it.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. My Irish co-workers have been trying to get me to come to the West, and I understand the best of Ireland for a while now. They've also counseled me to start with a joke, and then proceeded to tell a lot of jokes, which I unfortunately cannot repeat in public. But it has got me thinking that working with AI is much like dealing with Irish weather, because it's best to always bring an umbrella. And that's where I want to start. I know there's a lot of focus on the AI Act as such, but it's part of a far bigger strategy to regulating AI in the EU. So here you have the umbrella that the EU wants to set over AI. What are our expectations in Europe for AI? And then you can see there's 3 pillars: product safety, privacy, and cybersecurity. Product safety is because the EU considers AI a product as much as a car or a toy or a medical device. And they want to make sure that if you're developing a product in Europe, putting it on the market here or using it here, that we protect consumers from harm. So that's the first link. That's also where you find the AI Act. The second one is Europeans have an expectation of privacy. When our data is used, we want to know where it came from, we want to know that it's being used, we want to have certain rights, and they've been enshrined in laws such as the GDPR, which also applies to AI. So even today, there is regulation that you have to take into account when dealing with AI. And then the last leg is one that I like to call out because it's often forgotten. It's cybersecurity. Since the pandemic, the EU has significantly increased its focus on cyber resilience. And they have created legislation that is either sector specific, think of finance, think of energy, utilities, but also for AI and digital products. There's also the Cyber Resilience Act, which imposes specific stress testing for AI products, because we want to make sure if someone's using an AI product, it's not vulnerable to interference from a third party. So those are the three pillars of the EU's expectations for AI. And there are different pieces of legislation that map to them, which is great for lawyers like me, but is terrible for anyone who wants to know the practical about dealing with AI. So that's to situate the AI Act. Now, I'm going to do a quick poll, because I've heard quite often when people talk about the AI Act that it's either too specific or too general. And people don't really get the general gist of the AI Act. And that is because it is built around different groups that will be interacting with AI. You have those that will be designing it and putting it on the market, either as such or as part of their product. Those that will be importing it or distributing it in the EU, and then those that will be using it. And there are different obligations depending on where you are. So it's very difficult to say, here's the top 5 that you have to put in place for all of them. So just a quick poll, who here would be designing AI or integrating it into one of your products or services? Put your hands up and make sure to look at each other. Okay, great. Who would be importing or distributing AI? Okay, great, we'll develop AI, but it's not getting into the EU. Then, last category, who's looking to use AI? Roll it out in the company. Okay, higher? Great. First group of people, look at everyone who just put their hands up. That's your customer base. Then the second thing to remember is first group, if you're developing AI, unfortunately, you're gonna bear the brunt of it. The highest group of obligations is on you. And then there's a lower tier of obligations for the people that will be rolling it out, which is primarily because they also need to ensure that the end user, the individual, has an understanding of how things work and can exercise their rights. So that's the framework of how we're regulating AI and how that fits into, or how the AI Act fits into that. Now, I'm sure you're already thinking, that's great, Laura, but I really wanted to hear about the AI Act, so let's talk about the AI Act. But rather than giving you the nitty-gritty, as a typical lawyer would do, I've been counseled very much to go against all lawyerly instincts and keep everything practical. Instead of giving you the nitty-gritty, I'm going to try and give everyone here, regardless of the group in which you find yourself, a sense of what the AI Act would mean and what you have to think about. Not a checklist of these are all the requirements, but more broadly, what are the questions I should be asking in my team? What do I need to think about? And then if you realize you fit into one of these categories and you'll have to go through that extensive checklist, then that's the next step. That's something that you'll have policies and procedures for in your company. But so, where do we put all of this? First, the AI Act is, as I said, product safety. Therefore, what do? We've identified at EU level certain uses of AI that we've prohibited. We think they're so harmful that we don't want to allow them. Very similar to other products that are in the market today. If you produce certain chemicals, you're not allowed to produce them in a way that could be used in warfare. That's the same logic that goes behind prohibiting certain AI uses. Think of social scoring, real-time biometric identification in public spaces, AI that is designed to exploit vulnerable individuals such as children or the elderly, AI that is meant to exclude people based on specific characteristics. I think we can all feel that it wouldn't be appropriate to allow those kind of tools as such. So that's the first question you would need to ask yourself. What do we want the AI to do? What do we want to use it for? But also, what can it be used for? Because it's not only what you want it to do, it's also what could anyone else use it for. And I know you'll say, oh, we can't predict everything, but you still have to do that exercise because we don't want to risk that certain uses would be put on the market. And beyond the philosophical, you don't want to invest a lot of money in developing a pilot that in the end is not going to proceed because it's as such prohibited, or where you have to invest money to make a change later in the life cycle that is also going to cost you. And that would be because you put in safeguards that make sure that the prohibited use couldn't be realized. So that's your first question. What is the use and what could it be used for? Are any of those no-goes? And I'm sure your legal team will have a big checklist of all the no's that you can then put next to whatever you're thinking of and go through your concept. Then the second element of that under the AI Act is risk management. And I'm sure you can find a lot of summaries of the AI Act online that show you the risk pyramid, saying there are uses that are prohibited, there are uses that are considered high risk, then there are uses that are considered to have what's called specific transparency risks, and then minimal risk. That's all great, that's all very specific. Lawyers have done well at making a complex labyrinth and how to identify under which of these you fall. But in summary, it comes down to risk assessment and risk management. You'll have to understand, am I in a high risk or not? That's once you know no-go, okay, we're done with that, am I high risk or not? And then you start looking at, again, a checklist, because the EU has thought for you. We, as such, consider these high risk. You go through it. It includes, for example, the use of AI to take employment decisions, the use of AI to determine what you would have to study, the use of AI by law enforcement. There's a long list that you can check. And then if you are within that high-risk category, you essentially need to go through pre-market conformity assessment, which is, again, very legalistic to say. You'll have to go through a process where you get a stamp of approval. Once you have that, the product can go to market in the EU. And if you're someone who wants to use an AI product, it will be on you to check that they got that stamp of approval. So that's both sides of the story. Now, what does that risk management really mean? A lot of work for lawyers, obviously, but in practice, it also means data governance. What data is going in it? Is that data relevant? Is that data specific enough? Have we checked whether that data is representative of all the individuals that would need to be judged by the system or that would need to interact with the system? Have we done a cyber resilience assessment? How vulnerable is our product? Have we assessed the accuracy of the data? Because the AI might make certain assumptions which as such are correct, but if you look at the outcome, it is not correct. If I say Laura is, I have to be careful what I disclose about myself, but let's say Laura is a fan of the Belgian soccer team, and in practice I am not, but that is what the AI has been fed. It will say Laura is a fan of the soccer team. And you would say, well, that is correct, based on the data that it received. But the data as such was not correct. So just to give you a sense of, those are the type of checks to do. And then there's an important one. It's called human oversight, which I know in practice, a lot of people will go, okay, well, yeah, great, what does that mean? I just watch the AI do its thing? No, it's about making sure that we bring nuance and accountability to the AI. Yes, AI will hugely benefit humanity, but humanity will also benefit AI. We need to make sure that there is a common sense check on decisions that are made by AI. And even if that's not something that you would want to implement, your customers will be asking for it because under GDPR, that's already one of the obligations for automated decision making. So they will ask you, what is the mechanism that you have in place that allows me to check what is coming out of the AI, because I have to be able to explain that to the user. That is really a zoomed out vision of what the risk management obligations are under the AI Act. And then if we go a little bit back, when we look at the third question to ask yourself, that's an overarching one. And I say go a little bit back because this is one that doesn't only apply to high-risk AI. And then I would think that, again, it's a common sense check. It is when AI interacts directly with humans, make sure that humans know it's an AI. And I hate to use this example, but often people feel a little bit of cringe, I get it. If you think you're talking to someone while you're chatting online and it turns out that that is actually not at all who you thought it was, and you were really looking forward to whatever you were talking about, yeah, you wouldn't feel so good about that. So it's the same thing. Make sure that people who interact with the AI know that it is an AI. And as a manufacturer, you'll be responsible for building in a label, a way for the user, the end user, to know this is AI generated. Examples of AI that would be subject to that is chatbots, obviously. Also, non-prohibited emotion recognition. Yesterday, someone asked me about, oh, but what about emotion recognition? For example, if we do customer service, we might want to assign different call agents depending on the sentiment expressed. But I heard that's prohibited. It's prohibited if used in an employment context or education context, not as such. So again, start with the first one. What are you using it for? It will determine everything. But if we then put that in the customer service context, if I'm talking to customer service rep and I think I might get a bit upset, like, you know, Jeffrey, I sent this box back 2 weeks ago and I still haven't got my refund. I'm getting a little frustrated here. You would want to know that that is being logged. That's an instinctive thing. That's the transparency that comes out of the AI Act. A second element is a manual, so that whoever you're selling your AI to knows how to use it. You know, if I produce a car and I am giving that to the dealer, they have to know, like, how do I start the car? How do I open the trunk? Like, otherwise, well, I'm not going to be selling a lot of cars. And same for whoever is using it. If someone's driving in the car with them, they have to be able to say, oh, can you open the window? Oh, I put the child lock on. So really, that kind of transparency down the line. And also, under GDPR, what data did we use? Where did we collect it? How can you exercise your rights? That just builds on top of the AI Act. So first and foremost, what are we using it for? 2, what are the risks associated with it? 3, how to ensure transparency in various ways? And then 4, and that's how you know the lawyers were responsible for the AI Act, who's taking notes? Because everything needs to be documented, ranging from technical documentation to an AI passport. Once you get your CE stamp of approval, your AI basically has a passport, to policies and procedures that you have to have in place internally, documented risk assessments. In practice, just take notes of what you're doing as a design phase. What do we want it to do? Where would we be getting the data? Who's been involved? Who's signed off? Have we deployed certain processes to detect malfunctions? Did we log any malfunctions? It's, again, to me, it's common sense, but I often find that presentations about the AI Act are very complex, beautiful minds type of assessments. But I would boil it down to these 4. And as a lawyer, I have to caveat everything, of course. If you're in one of these specific categories, you're a manufacturer, you're a distributor, you're a user, you'll have to go through the checklist, you'll have to make sure you actually have the specific policies and procedures, etc. But those are business processes that I'm sure are being built in many companies, and where you'll be able to rely partly on business as usual. This is what I think is important to just take away about what the EU wants to do with AI. Now, I'm sure there's at least someone in this room who will say, that's great, but the AI Act isn't applicable yet. And they're right. So whoever that person is, I'll buy you a pint of Guinness. Then, sold. And that is because in the EU, there's 3 parties that have to all agree together on legislation, and the third one is holding out. They were supposed to approve it last month. They haven't done it yet. In theory, once they sign it, it will become official, it will be published. Then as of the 4th quarter of 2024, the prohibited uses will start to apply. So as of then, that is immediately in effect. And then there's a phased approach. At a certain point in 2025, the high-risk obligations will enter into force, and then later on in 2026, the full AI Act will enter into force. So it gives you a bit of a grace period. And it also depends on the political debate in Europe, or at least in Brussels, and how quickly they move along with it. Now I want to take one final moment to summarize. AI will hugely benefit humanity. We should embrace it, as we have done many other developments in the past. But humanity will also hugely benefit AI. And that's where everything that I've just discussed comes from. We've seen in the past that there have been developments where we applied trust is good, but we didn't apply the control. That's what we're trying to do now. Humans will bring nuance and accountability to AI. That's what we're trying to do in the EU. So, in practice, ask yourself, what's the use? No-go? Have I done the necessary risk assessments, risk management, talk to the lawyers? Am I able to explain how it works, both technically and in a way that the average consumer would understand? And who's taking notes? I'm sure there will always be one person who's designated, and in many cases, it's going to be AI. Thank you.
I will open the floor for questions, so if people want to put their hands up for questions, we will have a floating mic wandering around there first. In the meantime, I might ask you one question that I think could be of interest to everybody here. So for argument's sake, if I integrate with, say, ChatGPT into our systems, am I responsible?
Is how can I ensure human oversight? So if I implement a chatbot or a generative AI chatbot and it produces certain output, how can I then check how that decision was made? They don't have to tell you all their trade secrets, but they have to enable you to at least do that check.
Hello, hi Laura, thanks for your talk, it's great so far. My name's Kira. You just really segued nicely into my question, which is about the output. For example, in the realm of media and artwork and film, what are the laws around the output of AI and ownership? Particularly, something of interest for me was Spotify recently released information about AI music and their platform making lots of money from music that is not owned by anybody, so it's like a recurring kind of system that they are taking advantage of. So I was wondering about the laws around that. Thank you.
Oh, if I had the answer to that, I'd be a millionaire. Yeah, that's a very topical debate right now. It's if an AI scrapes the internet or is fed certain information and then creates an output, who's entitled to that output? If my song went in there and it created a new song that kind of sounds like mine, am I then entitled to royalties or fees for the use of my song? That's something that's covered by copyright laws. There are no specific laws that I'm aware of that are now being created to deal with that issue. It's being left to copyright laws, trade secret laws, patent laws, so all these types of protections for content or scientific discoveries or other developments that we created and are therefore protected. But I can tell you that the AI Act also requires the manufacturer to check before they take that data. Because the EU does not want to encourage people to simply take any type of content and then produce an AI that is put in the market. So they do put the responsibility with the manufacturer to check the data that they're using and that they have the appropriate rights to do so. But they know the regulation that's in place now, that are in place now, they don't interfere in the existing debate on copyright.
Questions on the back there?
Hi, thanks so much for the talk. I'm Albert from Cisco. I'm sure most European legislation that comes in gets heavily lobbied. And I'm guessing this act is going to add a big cost of doing business to companies. So I'm just curious to get any comments on whether there has been much heavy lobbying on this act and has it made it stronger or weaker? And is it at the stage, is there still changes going ahead that the companies that we all work for are trying to influence?
So yes, like any legislation, there is lobbying. I live in Brussels, so I really can't leave my office without running into a lobbyist these days. But I do think that the AI Act is also inspired not only from commercial perspective, but societal perspective. The upcoming elections and the rise of misinformation have really left their mark on the AI Act. And when you talk to the politicians in Brussels that have been involved in the drafting of the Act, that has played a key role, in particular in the transparency requirements, in the risk management and governance. They want to make sure that there is not a way to interfere with democracy through AI. So I would say yes, there is lobbying, and yes, of course, there will be commercial lobbying, as with any legislation. I don't think toy safety rules or pharmaceutical safety rules have come into force without an appropriate level of lobbying, but that is not the only lobbying that has played a role in the rise of this act.
Great. I'm looking for one more question, and then in the interest of time, I do need to move on. So I think it was down here.
You have mentioned in your talk that every automated decision our algorithm will be responsible for explanation and accountability. So my question is that who will be measure the accountability? It will be only the part by the developers, they will be from the legislation side.
Sorry, could you speak up just a little bit?
You have mentioned that in your talk that every automated decision or algorithm will be responsible for explanation and accountability according to their decision. So my question is that who will be measure the accountability?
So who is the main responsible for accountability for decisions taken by AI? Yes, so that comes with the user. So it's, again, I really want to frame this as product safety. You have the people that will develop it, and then you have the people that use it, and that the responsibilities have been split accordingly. So if I were to use an AI for creditworthiness assessment, I'm responsible for explaining to the individual who asked for credit why it wasn't granted. Whether that's under the AI Act or GDPR, your legal team will figure it out and tell you, yeah, we have to be able to explain it. Make sure you ask the manufacturer how we can trace that back so we can, but the obligation will be with us to be able to explain that. So it's primarily with the user that is interfacing with whoever is the subject of a decision that's being made. To give you another example, employment context, if someone applied for a job and AI ruled them out because you set certain criteria, they might ask you, why was I not chosen? Same for promotions. If an exam was corrected by AI and I want to contest the outcome, you feel organically that the person that will be in the hot seat is the person that has used the AI. but they may not have the know-how, so they'll have to rely on the manufacturer. And if there's someone in between, an importer or distributor, they may have to rely on that person, who then again needs to be in good contact with the manufacturer. So down the line, at the end, the individual me, who's the subject of a decision, can understand.
Great, Laura, thank you so much. It's actually interesting to hear another perspective. Right, so next up, and it's a nice segue into how to put AI into operations, where the panel will provide lightning presentations on the best things they did and the biggest pitfalls before the AI panel then sit here just for a discussion. And as we talked earlier about putting AI into operation, I'm delighted that Keith Griffin explained why I have a very bad hair day on video conference. It's all due to the outlining, so thank Keith for explaining that. First up we have Sarah, who's going to be our moderator, so from HPE. Sarah is a seasoned software engineer who exemplifies technical expertise, leadership and passion for innovation. With over 15 years of experience in the tech industry, she enjoys new challenges and is currently leading the team in developing customer self-serve problem-solving systems using chatbots and machine learning. Sarah? Also joining Sarah, we have Dr. Catherine Enright, who is a senior expert and principal perception architect at Vallejo, the world's leading provider of driving assistance systems to automotive manufacturers. The Tube Laboratory is Vallejo's global hub for AI-based computer vision solutions. Catherine and the Tube team are at the forefront of the huge changes that are taking place not only in AI, but also in making the software-defined vehicle become a reality. And also on the panel, last but not least, we have Paul Fadden, who is Managing Director of Ticketsoft, where he oversees the company's strategic direction. He helps ensure that the Ticketsoft team delivers an exceptional customer experience and world-class products. The company has embraced generative AI in customer service, product engineering, and core product features. He frequently speaks on organizational leadership, development, strategic management, and innovation. And I think I might have skipped over Katie by accident. So, not last for Paul. Also on the panel is Galway native Katie McGowan. She's engineering manager at Cisco. Katie's an experienced manager with over 20 years experience with leading technologies. She's skilled in building and leading motivated teams, delivering complex end-to-end solutions, improving processes, and delivering client applications. And Katie now leads the AI WebEx experience for Cisco. So welcome to the stage. Thank you.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the talk about putting AI into operations. The format of the talk is going to be that Catherine, then Katie, then Paul are going to give a lightning talk of about 45 minutes just about how they achieved putting AI into operations in their company. And it's a great opportunity for us to share experiences and just learn from how other people have achieved putting their AI into operations. Once the talks are finished, then we'll open up the questions from the audience as well. So without further ado, Catherine is going to present first.
Hi, I work in the automotive industry, where we're using AI to develop driver assistance systems. We build sensors, and we use AI to get meaning from those sensor measurements. In Tube specifically, we work on camera data, surround view cameras on the car. And we've been working with them for nearly 15 years now. So I had a lot of food for thought when thinking about how we put AI into operation. But when I thought about the question, it was the same things that kept coming up in my head. I kept thinking again, going, there must be more. There actually isn't. It's all down to data, data, and data. They're your three most important things. Firstly, you really need to understand your data. You need to understand your requirements. What data do I really need to solve my problem? So one of the functions that we would do would be braking on a pedestrian. So I might ask the data team, can you go out and get me 10,000 hours of video with pedestrians in it? And they go and they drive all over Europe and they bring back my 10,000 hours and I go, super. They've driven around all the towns and cities in Europe in different lighting conditions, different weather conditions. And I look at the data set, it's fantastic. Lots of pedestrians in it, but they're all on the pavement. So guess what? My network is going to learn that pedestrians only exist on the pavement. They're never in front of the car where I'm going to crash into them. So that's what I mean by really having the data you need to solve your problem, and knowing what data you have and what data you need. So, as I mentioned, we've sent cars all over the world, and as you can imagine, that's very costly, and it takes time. So at the start of our project, we never have all the data we need. But what we do need to plan properly is the visibility into what data we have, and what data is coming, and when it's coming. And finally, I need to be able to effectively search my data. And I know it sounds obvious, but if a customer comes back to me and says, hey, in an indoor car park in Japan where the floor was really shiny blue, we couldn't detect parallel parking slots. And I go, crap, how many samples of that were in my data set? So I've got to be able to search my data set for parallel slots on blue shiny surfaces. The next thing is being able to efficiently process your data. How quickly can you collect your data? How quickly can you annotate that data? How quickly can you get it through your network to train it and do lots of iterations? How efficiently can you generate KPIs? And you might start your project, set up your perfect pipelines, and it's all great. But trust me, as you add more complexity to the project, all these will slow down if you don't pay attention. You need to continually optimize these processes. And finally, you need to measure success with data. Your KPIs. Is my algorithm really working? Where do I measure these KPIs? We really need to measure them all the way along because it's much more efficient to fix a problem early in the pipeline. But again, what are the right KPIs? Coming back to my pedestrian detection algorithm, maybe my designer will say, hey, got the new data set, and my KPIs, I've got a 10% increase in my true positive rate in pedestrians. That's fantastic. Let's put it in the car and go down to the test track, and every time we hit the dummy. Guess what? That 10% improvement wasn't pedestrians on the pavement. Again, there was no improvement in my driving tube. KPIs weren't right that I was measuring at my algorithm. So they really need to reflect the function you're implementing at the very end. All your KPIs along the pipeline need to lead to that. And you need to see if there's an improvement in one of those that will match an improvement in my end user function. And I know what I'm saying is really obvious. You've heard it all before. You've seen pictures like this with data ops and ML ops. Probably, this is obvious. This is basic stuff. But the basics, they're really, really hard to get right at scale. And when we're innovating at the pace at which we're all innovating. So you really have to pay attention to these basics. Your project won't fail because you didn't integrate the latest, greatest, sexiest network architecture. Your projects will fail because you didn't have the right data at the right time, you weren't able to efficiently process that data, and you weren't measuring the right KPIs at the right place. So it all comes back to my three most important things: data, data, and data.
So, as you can see, Cisco has been delivering on AI since the 90s. It's really nothing very new for us. We identified early that it was more than a trend, and we committed to it. And everything Cisco has done since has been built on top of these AI ideas. Within Cisco WebEx, through acquisitions such as Voicea, Babbelabs, and MindMeld, these provided the foundation for us for the natural language processing, voice and video intelligence, and then this provided the framework for everything that we've built WebEx on top of, and it completely extends as well to our contact center solutions also. I'm going to just talk about how we deliver some of our more recent features in WebEx. A lot of these are generative AI features. So in the last it's not a few months, it's a year now, we've delivered a number of features within the WebEx app to enhance the user experience. Things like, I'm late for my meeting, catch me up, what have I missed, action items, summaries, rewrite my message, and an AI assistant, Ask Me Anything assistant as well. Something that helped in the very early days with velocity on this was an internal tool developed by one of the engineers. I can actually see him smiling up here at me. It was one of his innovation projects. And the tool allowed you to connect to various LLMs and test with your real data and prompt engineer just in real time. Change the prompt to get the answer, change the prompt to get the answer. And it was testing it using our data that we had there. It was planned to be an internal engineering tool within the development team, but quickly our product management team, our design team, our sales team, and our executives got their hands on the tool and started using it. And this really helped us early on because these other cohorts, it enabled them to produce their own proof of concepts, it enabled them to test their own hypotheses, and helped us all innovate together. As you can see here, this is just a very simple example of a prompt. You know, just changing a few words in the prompt can dramatically change the output. Anyone with a master of language can be a prompt engineer. It's as simple as that. If you gave the other cohorts of people the tools to do it, it can be easily done. Something else that did change for us is we have a traditional triad of feature delivery, which is engineering, product management, and design. We supplemented this by adding legal and security very early into the discovery and innovation phases. So this gave us the freedom to innovate while ensuring very quick feedback loops with these teams. And then this was all built on top of our responsible AI framework. Anyone that was here earlier for Keith's talk, Keith actually helped build this framework along with our team in Galway, giving feedback with the legal and security teams in with us. This really helped us stay on top of the ever-changing regional legislations and guidelines. There was days we'd come in and by the evening the guidelines had changed and we had assessments at every single stage of our development. Our governance involved legal and privacy teams just working directly with engineers. They were pretty much part of our Scrum team. One of the biggest challenges we had was convincing the customers to try our features. Again, very early inclusion of security and legal and our responsible AI framework, and us following all the steps and documenting everything as we went, meant we could be completely transparent with customers. Transparent, open that black box, as so many people have said today, and show this is what we're doing with your data, this is what's going to happen to your data, and this is where your data is being sent. And that transparency really gave customers confidence that we knew what we were doing, and gave them the peace of mind to trust us with their data. And we actually got a lot of customers to onboard really, really early. And this facilitated us to iterate really quickly and get that early feedback. A lot of these features weren't out there, no one was using them. We didn't have user feedback on it. But by having this, we were able to continue and get that customer feedback. We are very metric driven as an engineering team. We always have been. We love delivering fast, measuring it, going back again. We measure everything. That's how we are as engineers. I know that we're a fan of dashboards, so that's why I threw this in. One of the big concerns early on, especially using generative AI, was around costs. Token in and token out costs, and every new LLM came out, the cost went up. If you're building your own LLM, obviously cost wasn't a huge concern. And we have a mixture of them. So we were able to measure it very early on from the first day of implementing the code, counter tokens in, and get a measurement of costs. Then we could predict how much it was going to cost us to deliver these features. WebEx has millions of users, so this was a really good concern for us. Other examples of things we measure on an ongoing basis and monitor with alerts are like compression rates, especially for summaries, the traditional thumbs up, thumbs down, and the feedback from the users. is all monitored as well. In conclusion, AI really isn't about the technology, it's about responsible innovation, as you've heard all day. If you're transparent, you involve your diverse teams, you can deliver very impactful AI solutions. Thanks very much, and I'll hand over to Bob.
So my job here today is hopefully I can explain to you how AI has had a transformational impact on our business in a very, very short space of time. Just really quickly, 25 years ago to the day, I'm pretty sure I finished my last exam in this hall. From that terrifying event to this terrifying. A little about us, TicketSolve, we're 17 years in the making. We're a SaaS platform. We service the arts, culture and heritage, whatever that means in terms of theatres, venues and festivals across the UK and Ireland. 75% of our business is in the UK, 25% in Ireland. Here in here in Galway, I should say. I'm in the Oman, in Galway. We've got the Galway Arts Festival, Druid, the Town Hall Theatre and a number of others. So we've 38 staff and we process in the region of about 250 million. I'm one of the shareholders within TicketSolve as well. So, again, just a show of hands, do you remember where you were when you heard first about ChatGPT? Where exactly where you were? No? Okay. Well, I actually do, because I'll never forget it actually. It was mesmerizing. We were on a call, we were on a group call, and one of the people on the call started talking about ChatGPT. And I went down after that, lost loads of hours playing around with it, and I was absolutely blown away by it. And how long ago was that? That's just a blink of an eye. So what we did as an organisation then, we came together as a group, management team, but all of the team from the various different departments, we said, what can we do with AI? And we had loads of different ideas. Okay? So that's in terms of what you're talking about here today, in terms of how to implement this. So we looked at it from finance, we looked at it from marketing, operations, customer onboarding, customer success, and so on and so forth. We quickly realised that, okay, we're going to run down rabbit holes here, we won't be able to do anything, we're going to try and do too many things, so we tried to bring some kind of strategic focus to it. So the strategic focus that we went for with TicketSolve was, we went with pillars of AI, okay? So the customer experience. How do we enhance the customer experience, okay? So our customers dealing with our agents, and also the onboarding of our agents onto TicketSolve. Product service. So what can we do? What features? Every Thursday we release new functionality, but how can we do that even quicker and bring out more features that our customers actually want? And then operation streamlining, what can we do to optimize within TicketSolve in terms of the processes, also the reports and everything that we do. Okay, so this is the genesis of the AI knowledge. So this now is in play with TicketSolve. Okay, so that's the first thing we said we would do, as opposed to running off and doing a million things. We said, okay, let's just focus. I think Laura mentioned that earlier on, just focus on one or two things and then go for it. So we saw this as the biggest kind of win for us. So our customers come to us, they might raise a ticket or make a phone call, and it's quite technical, to be fair, a lot of the questions that they ask, okay? So when a new support person comes onto the team, they have to be trained up and it takes quite some time, okay? That was one of the problems. So then there was inconsistent responses as well. So you can imagine, we're all different, we've all different ways of answering, different tones of message and so on and so forth. And then we had huge repositories of knowledge around the organisation. So Zendesk PDF, Vimeos and Zendesk tickets and so on and so forth. So we then engaged with an expert in this field, right? Even though we're software developers, we went out to, I think Brian's on later, to Brightbeam, and we engaged with them because, to be honest, we didn't really know what this involved. Okay, and ta-da! Here is our knowledge agent. Okay, so this knowledge agent now, after a long time, to be fair, it doesn't just work overnight. You plug and play, and away you go. There is a lot of teaching with it. But here you can see here we can ask it any question. So how do I run a crossover report? So this is within TicketSolve. So this is for our agents, consistent. Gives them exactly what they have to do, and also with support videos and so on and so forth, and they can send that directly to the customers. Okay? So, again, what were the benefits of that for us? For our team, again, streamlined. They could get the onboarding, like, literally reduced by 50-60% in terms of how long it took before they could actually go off and answer questions themselves. And the biggest one for us is that the real value add for us at Ticketall is moving our support team into customer success. Okay? So it was 80-20, now it's roughly about 60-40 gone into customer success. And that's what one of our KPIs is, moving as many people into that. And it's a real career progression for them as well. Okay? What are the future plans for us within AI within Ticketall? Now again, this is a massive area for us, but if you can imagine, so you have the Galway International Arts Festival, you come in and you go, okay, I'm going to write a query. Okay, what's the query? Well, I want to see, first off, how many people are from Galway. That's important because maybe there's events that you want to sell really, really quickly because they're not selling so fast, but you don't want to send it out to the whole of Ireland. You only send it out to a certain radius, okay, because you'll cannibalize your sales. So the next one might be, okay, I have Darrow Green coming. Can you tell me basically what we should do in terms of marketing mix? Who were my audience that came last year? What did they spend? And what should I be going after now to try and attract us again in the future? So our customers now will be able to do that in-app, and we're building that out. The second part of it is on customer success again, is our customers now have, that's us. We send out biannual reports to our customers, telling them how they're doing on an aggregate level against local peer groups. So how you're doing in terms of return on investment on fundraising, what are you doing in terms of click-through rates, which campaigns work for you, and myriad of things. We have now brought that into AI, and ChatGPT is really helping us with this, and it has automated the process for us. Okay? And then it can compare on an aggregate level how you're doing, and it'll tell you in terms of you're not doing so well here, and here's not only that, tips and tricks to help you improve that. And then the last one piece in terms of like engineering piece, which I have very little knowledge of, to be fair, in terms of what they do and how they do it. But we are constantly coming up with new ideas and new features. As I said, every Thursday, but they're leaning into AI bigger than they've ever done before. Okay, so the last slide, really quickly, in terms of what were the challenges of it. There's loads of challenges. Right? It's not easy, as I said. It's not just plug and play and away you go and everything is fixed for you. No, there's definitely work. Like anything in life, a bit of work is needed or you don't expect it. The difficulty in managing the unstructured data, accuracy as well at the start, and again we work with Brightbeam guys on that, just making sure there was getting to, I think it's at 96-97% accuracy now. There was, which I found myself a little bit startling, was there was a resistance internally, and we did a really bad job of that, to be honest. We didn't do a good job of communicating to our team, I should say, and there was real fear of displacement. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much to the speakers. Absolutely great talks as well. I'm going to take advantage of being MC and to have a first question. So one thing actually that really struck me about your talks is just the need for socialization within the company as well. And you know, when you're dealing with a new technology, you want people to have positive interactions. Like within your company culture, how did you, was there a deliberate kind of space made for that kind of playtime? Or, you know, was it something more formal as well that you started, or is it something that just happened naturally and then kind of spread more? Katie, do you want to start off?
In Cisco, it was kind of a mix of both. Like we did, it was all forced. Like all our execs go and we need AI, we need to do this, we need to do this. I think everyone had that, and we still have it now. But then natural things like I spoke about the tool that Stephen here developed, like he allowed everyone across our organisation to try out prompt engineering. And no more than giving transparency and trust to customers, this gave transparency and trust to our product teams, our sales teams. Like one of our senior VPs still uses the studio tool that Stephen, he messaged me last day going, is integration down, I can't get access. You know, that opened that up to all those other cohorts, and it's, I suppose, about inclusion when it comes to AI. Some of the technologies are not as difficult themselves. Yes, if you're creating LLMs and you're training data, like that is quite hard, but you can start on very basic things like change the tone of my message. And you can do this very simply through prompt engineering. So allowing people to be able to do it themselves and I suppose gently get into it and showing it's an okay and safe space is good. But then there's always the responsible AI. I think everyone's harping on about it constantly, but it has to be there in the background, and we instill that constantly with everyone. So we wouldn't have talked about it because it's engraved in us.
Super. Thank you. Catherine?
I guess there's two sides to that question from where I sit. So, because we were kind of in a manufacturing company, but they typically makes parts for cars, traditionally did. Us in computer vision were sort of this strange crowd over in Tune that were developing AI stuff, and we started small and little functions, and now it's grown and grown, and now suddenly everybody's talking about software-defined vehicles and AI, and we're going, yeah, that's what we've been doing. What's the big deal? But that's kind of one part of it, and the other products that we sell. But now there's the whole use of AI in order to make us more productive. You know, and the use of the tools to help you with your coding, that's got a lot more people thinking, and you have to go to say, are we going to lose our proprietary information? And despite the fact that we've been selling AI for years, suddenly using it as a tool and in our day-to-day, and using it to improve our manufacturing, using it to improve our knowledge sharing internally, those are the big buzz things that you hear people talking about at work. And they're quite interesting in those conversations. And you know, we're all dying to get hold of the tools, and it's like, hang on a second, you're not allowed to let them yet. You can do it at home, but you know, but it's coming. And you know, we have teams that look at the ethics of it, look at the legality of it, and look at protecting the company and how we can do that and use these tools. And you know, now we're gradually rolling them out. And knowledge sharing is one place that certainly Gen AI is going to be really useful. You know, I mean, I don't know if you're like us, where a lot of knowledge isn't quite in the formal design documents. It might be in some slides, it might be in a chat. It's kind of dispersed everywhere, the really key important knowledge. And trying to use Gen AI to pull that out is something we're tackling now, but I don't know if it'll succeed.
Yeah, like we're quite a small organisation, honestly, so you know, we can be very agile and quick in terms of what we do. And it's like anything in any other organisation. I think people, if there's early adopters, even you know, from a consumer brand's point of view, in our company, there are early adopters, but there are others that are kind of a little gun shy, shall we say? Okay. So what we had to do there was we had to again listen to all of our people and teams, understand what their fears were first and foremost, and address them head on. So we had a meeting to basically say, look, there's nothing to be scared of here. Okay? I love the constantly curious thing. Just go and play with it and see what comes from it. Like go in and try and do things that are really annoying. What's the worst job you have to do? And this help you to sort that. Yeah. And then they were like, okay, wow, we really can't. Now again, there were some pushbacks on it as well, as like the authenticity of it as well, in terms of like sending out a low, a big blur that doesn't really sound like us, or tone, etc. And people push back straight away on that, and that's fine. I really respect that, to be fair, because that's the core of who we are as a company. But in terms of how do we facilitate Slack channels, again, anything new coming up, anything that you should be interested in, what's your thoughts on this, and you play around with this, and then once they see results, or like, I would ask a lazy man to do the job, and he's the best person to do it. I'm not saying any of them are, to be honest with you, but it can really give you amazing results, to be fair, and they saw that very quickly. But once they get over it,
super, that's great. Thanks, guys. We might open up for our first audience question as well. If there is anybody there. There's a gentleman in the middle here, thanks.
You mostly come from kind of development engineering spaces, so I was just wondering, when you're developing AI or machine learning, there's the people who develop algorithms and models they can often be mathematicians, PhDs, but when you want to put it into production, that has to be handed over to a software development engineering team. One, have you come across that in your companies? And two, how do you smooth out that difference, that handover between two different kind of disciplines?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we definitely have. I was smiling when you were asking the question. It's not always the easiest thing, having two teams work together like that. But you know, I think just partnering up and understanding that this team is, or the others are delivering something, and then we have to make it into a product and build on top of it. Just communication, constant understanding, and responsibility and framework kind of made that common for all of us in Cisco. I'm not sure if that fully answers your question. I feel like it's a much longer discussion I could have with you at the table inside.
Yeah, it certainly means the way our teams are structured. We would have an algorithm team, and then we'd have an embedded team, because typically our algorithms are running on these nice servers, and then we've got to put them on a little embedded board that will sit in a car. And sometimes those teams are even in different countries. But it's not a case of, here, I'm handing you over this, now it's your job. It's a constant iteration. We need to deliver that algorithm early on in the pipeline. There's no point in waiting till it's squeaky clean and perfect, because it won't run in the car then, you know. So it's a constant iteration, and those people actually have to work very closely together. And the algorithm team don't get away and walk on to the next cool thing. They're there till the very end, because the optimizations need to be done at all the stages of the pipeline. So it's constant communication and keeping them both in the loop.
Great, thank you. I mean, Paul, I'd be very interested, you know, we talk a lot about language, particularly in the, you know, with AI and these large language models, you know, you have stated you're from maybe a less technical, more of a general overview. I mean, where do you see kind of, sometimes I can see that there's but issues of developers trying to communicate upwards, you know, but they don't really have the language for that. You know, could you give us examples of how, you know, maybe hints and tips for us to kind of funnel up the ideas, or, you know, just things that maybe you'd be like, oh, this sounds good, you know, things that would catch your attention and the best way to communicate that?
Yeah, well, again, how we facilitate that, we're quite fortuitous as well, because I've worked for big companies like Kerry Group, and, you know, and there are all these different departments, etc., and that's just the nature of a massive company, to be fair, where we're not, in that word siloed, but we're not really, you know what I mean, we work cross-department, cross-functional, we have lots of cross meetings, okay, and where every idea is listened to, okay, and they don't have to be agreed with, for sure, but it is, we have that culture where people are allowed to bring ideas to the table, and we do promote, like, please bring the crazy ideas as well, because they're often the things that actually stand out from the crowd. And also, it's that thing constantly be curious. I just love that. So, where they're coming with new ideas, I've seen this, I've seen that, what do you think of this, and so on. And again, there is, we all say, and you have to as well, like Steve Jobs, it's like the biggest thing that he ever said was no. You can't do everything.
Yes.
So, you just have to be realistic, and we have a very limited bandwidth in terms of our development capacity as well. So, but yeah, it doesn't stifle people's creativity in coming with suggestions.
Super, great answer, thank you. Are there any other questions from the audience? Here? No, I guess one question I have, you know, there's a talk about, oh, Sarah, thank you very much.
Hi, thanks. Just got in there at the end. I have a question about how we test these models. So, a number of you have spoken about how you take large language models, you create an interface with your users, product, you do prompt engineering, you kind of get the tone right, you know, the data, etc. But how do you test? And particularly interesting, all day we've talked about AI, I've heard nobody, I think, mention hallucinations, right? Now, I'm not sure that they've gone away, maybe they have. But how do you test in the context of, you know, it can be any kind of input, you don't know what the users are going to put into your system, and we can't always trust the output of the AI or the large language model. How do you test, and how do you ensure that you're going to give reasonable answers to your users?
Yeah, well, I agree in terms of, like, we've gone through that with, again, as I said, the department with Brightbeam, and, you know, we would have gone back to them, okay, and we tested very simply, is we would have a kind of strike team of 3 people on this project, and this is the knowledge agent AI, and we would get them to ask real questions that are coming in from our customers, okay? They're like real times, and see how accurate those were, first and foremost. That was the first iteration, and we go back, like, guys, this is way out of sync here, and that was the constant feedback. Then, over time, you're obviously the very simple thumbs up, thumbs down in terms of, like, will this answer the question? And those are the type of feedback loops that we were having with our partner to ensure that we got it right.
Yeah, we did multiple things as well. Like, we did build a test framework. We had to add in all the guardrails. I think we could probably talk for hours and hours about what we did, what we learned, what we did wrong, and what we did right. Hallucination detection, we got that in very early and solved for that. We had things with languages as well, language detection, that, you know, if the language is in French and you are catching up on the meeting, the catch-up should be in French. You know, and that was all built into this bigger framework that we did. So we have a bigger testing framework, and it's ongoing. Like, we're not going to solve for everything. And I think this is like, especially when using external LLMs, you're kind of putting something out there, but you can't be in complete control of what's going to come back to you. You can try to stay on top of it as best you can, but you can't control it all, you know, and building these guardrails that goes in the guidelines for responsible AI, you know, just helps you kind of stay on top of it. And I think end users and customers are aware of this, that it's not perfect. Like, ChatGPT is not perfect. If you ask who the Taoiseach of Ireland is, ChatGPT will not give you the correct answer. Very simple question. So you need to kind of almost think of it as another person that probably doesn't know anything, but has an awful lot of data. So yeah.
For us, we're not quite testing large language models in the vehicle, but testing is obviously really, really important for us. And we test at various points. We test software in the loop, and then we'll have processors in the loop, and then the actual vehicle in the loop. And we generate KPIs at all those stages. And because we've got to be able to prove statistically that our vehicles are safe. But you're right, they're never always going to be perfect. No algorithm is going to have a 100% true positive rate, but you still have to deliver a safe function at the end. And not only do we do our testing, but in parallel, our customers, who would be the actual manufacturers that you buy from, they're doing testing in parallel when we're developing and we're delivering our product. So testing is a huge part of our industry. And as I say, there's lots of legislation in place, and there's lots of KPIs in place, and there's lots of standards in place that we have to meet, and that all comes through testing and statistical models.
I see an awful lot of the publicly available LLMs are improving constantly as well. You know, you could ask it certain things and it'll reply back going, I'm not going to answer that question for you. You know, so you can see them constantly growing and be responsible and, you know, just staying on top of it. So it's good.
And I suppose as well, I mean, everything that you test should always have an outcome as well. But, you know, as we saw during the pandemic, for example, you know, people struggle with understanding risk and the perception of risk as well. I mean, did you have stumbling blocks, you know, within your companies as, you know, because if you give somebody, you know, we've said model drift, for example, you know, that mightn't mean anything to some, you know, to people in the greater community within your company. So how did you overcome those challenges? Deep sighs.
I guess, again, it all comes back to, like, us, the end user function that we're building, and making it trustworthy, and knowing what level of function we're doing. And it changes for us depending on what we're delivering, whether it's a level 2 function in which, it's an assistant, it's there to help. The driver's in control and that's it. So we always, it's nice as an algorithm engineer, okay, the driver's in control if I get it wrong. But when you go to level 4, you don't have that cop-out. You can't say, if the network's hallucinating and breaking randomly, you don't want to be sitting in that car. We haven't solved all of it. A lot of it is constraining the functions at the moment and saying, okay, we will only offer this function in this scenario, in the daylight, in these conditions. But then you've got to prove, have I met all those conditions? So it continues. But building up trust with the driver and the OEMs, in the end, it's just constant testing and trying it out and iterating over it.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Oh, there's a gentleman at the back there. Yeah, I mean, I think actually when you say that it's constant, I always say to people AI is a bit like a puppy, you know, it needs constant minding as well. It's not just you can build it and forget about it as well. And that's something that's very important to socialise with people as well.
Yeah, but I guess for us as well, drift test, once we put a model in a car, it doesn't change. You know, at the moment. I mean, I know there's people who want it, you know, will it learn more in the car? No, not at the moment, because we can't stand up with that. We haven't tested that. We can't prove that that meets all our KPIs. So,
and there's various risks, like you're dealing with driving a car that could potentially hurt someone. Whereas one of ours is catching you up on a meeting. You know, it's the risk involved depending on the functionality of what you're doing.
And what's at stake, Okay, are we ready for the question?
Hello. I'm curious about the engineering hours effort that goes into like the aftercare of an AI-powered solution that's deployed into production, for example. Like if you were to quantify, you know, like how many hours, let's say, within a quarter go towards actually just the upkeep of the solution that's already deployed to production, maybe like, you know, the reassessment of bias, the retraining, anything else that goes into it.
typically for us, as I said, once it's deployed in a car, that's it, it's done. But there's lots of retraining that goes on in a couple of years before that. You know, one of the things we would always do is try to get that end-to-end up and running quickly. You don't build your models in isolation. So we do those iterations before we go to production. And I know that's different for other domains. You probably would be constantly updating your models.
Yeah,
as they go live.
If you're training a model, it's obviously going to be hugely costly. For some of the generative AI, we have metrics and KPIs, we have alerts. If we're getting too many thumbs up or too many thumbs down, so we get an alert if compression rates changes. We get an alert, slight being on call, and it's constant monitoring. But that's just bolted into normal operations. Like, it's no different to anything else. Like, I've been working on WebEx now for about 8 years. It's no different to the other functionality we've delivered that we need to stay on top of. It needs to be up. People need to be able to make calls, you know, have meetings and send messages. If they can't, we're in trouble. So it's no different to those in that kind of feature, but yeah, with the LLMs and the retraining and working with the intelligence team, there's constant costs there. I can't quantify it right now for you, but I'll find out for you.
And I guess actually that brings in, you know, it kind of ties in nicely with what we looked at earlier. In order to be able to do these things, you do need the skills to do it as well. And you know, we've all kind of encountered as well, you know, that fear that people have of jobs are becoming devalued and more commoditized as well. But yet there's a very strong demand for technical skills. Like, if you were a baby developer starting out, you know, Paul, in your company, you know, obviously, if you bring somebody technical in, they have to do a lot of things and be able to pick up. You know, what kind of skills are you looking for in your place?
Yeah, again, so I'll speak to briefly in terms of the development side, because that's not my wheelhouse, to be fair. So I would do a disservice to that. But in terms of, we're bringing lots of obviously data engineers because obviously we're dealing with big, large data sets, because our customers have such rich tapestry of data on all of their customers. If you can imagine any of the leaders and menus that are out there. And it's a very willing data, if that makes sense. It's not like a faceless brand like a Nora cup of soup. It's like a place where you want to spend your time. So people give all their data, okay, they're willing to do that, and then you can do really cool things with that data. From a point of view on our side, again, in terms of skill set, it's around people, I suppose, I know I keep saying this, but the curiousness around, okay, what can I do with this data to help our customers make more informed decisions, okay? And that's a mantra that we decide. So the data, as I kind of describe it, is kind of, you go to the doctor and it'll give you a readout of your bloods, right? That data is similar here. So it's like, where are you doing well, where are you doing poor, and what do we need to do to fix it? And that's what we're trying to take on to the next level for our customers. Because it's all there, everything's in the data.
Yes, which kind of ties back to that lovely phrase from earlier in the morning when they said understanding as a service as well. Yeah, which is really what we're trying to create with these things. So it looks like we're almost finished. So thanks again to the panel. As I said, they've made my job very easy. They really, really have. But just to finish, we spoke about a lot of companies are just starting to engage with AI as well. You guys have been at the code phase, you've integrated. So I'm just going to ask Catherine, Katie, and Paul to give, one piece of advice or how they overcame a challenge, or just what would they say to somebody who's starting on this journey as well. So, would you like to start, Katie?
Yeah, I'd kind of say metric-driven decisions and involve legal and security from day one, and culture, create a culture of experimentation from day one. Iterate fast and be ready to throw your whole availability to.
For me, I'd say start with a small project, but do it end to end. Don't just do a little proof of concept that says, hey, I got this now, this is cool stuff. Well, put all the bits in. How do I get the data for that? How do I test that? How do I get that in the car? How do I build a function around it? So even though it might be a small AI, do the whole thing, do the product, and iterate that way, because if you don't do the whole product, it's kind of wasted.
Yeah, I iterate Catherine's sentiment definitely is like what we would recommend is pick a project that you can see results quickly, especially because you're putting a buy-in from the team, then it's easier to roll into various other departments. That's my top, without getting into the nitty-gritty of it. And that's worked for us. They can see, okay, this is working, so okay, AI is something we need to embrace. And I don't think the into is being used a lot. But definitely we need to grasp hold of the network here and go for it.
Oh, super. Thanks again to a great panel.
Right, so I'm sure you're all very excited we're about to have a break, so you can just stay for 1 minute with me. Atlantic is sponsored by Skillnet Ireland through iTag Skillnet, and there's a training profile here behind this QR code that's to collect information relating to the participants of training programs and events that are partially or fully funded by Skillnet Ireland, and that's to ensure that we're using funds appropriately. So if I would ask you to take out your phones and use the QR code here to kind of sign up and fill in the form. There is some good news that for people who actually signed up, there is a €50 voucher for somebody randomly selected after the break. And then of course, we're just going to have a quick break for 15 minutes, and then after the break we have our final panel, which is going to discuss how to prepare for a future in AI. So if you didn't take the hint, it's 15 minutes. All right, okay, see you after the break.
England for the flight for a couple of weeks.
Oh, you Jared. How's things? And you? Yeah. Going that way? You can go either way.
Oh, it is about me. No, it's just my time. I'm not afraid to create it's quite big.
Mike, how are you?
Yeah, we're in the same boat. Yeah. Yes. Something like this. Yes. Yeah, of course. OK is under a lot of pressure at the moment. Yeah. Oh no, but he's trying to navigate through this at the moment.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry. Yeah, he's trying to navigate this. No, the illicit he's acting side lead. Sorry, he's acting side lead, so he's basically working through the IT organization. So yeah. So he had been
people you know?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'll talk to you. But no, we had a good chat.
If you want to.
No.
Sean, nice to meet you. We're Kelly. Nice to meet you. How are you?
Let Dolphin show.
You don't have to talk. Hold your head high.
Farming and flowers.
Excellent.
You have to be patient.
You do definitely. Likewise. Yes. Yeah.
School apart. Yeah. Bye-bye.
I know. But so yeah, he's directing himself. Yes, it's essentially map progress coming from yeah, they've done a lot of acquisitions this week. It's by last week. Yeah, yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, well, they do more hiring. They've acquired Atlantec just this week, which is basically orchestration is new. Exactly, that's the integration. So it's going to take a year. Yeah. And 9 years in service is an all lot. What their bank loan is Yes. Yeah.
Like all the stuff that's
That's why I felt it's the right time for me.
You have the option. You have the work.
Yeah. 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 So anyway, I'm optimistic about that. We'll see what's out there. I've talked to a couple of somebody who's dealing with but he seemed to have something in the pipeline that wasn't giving me any assurance. He was interested. He said, I don't know if I will go into the same thing again or if I go to it. But he says, I've only actually, it was finished on April 23rd, because it's the same date as my father's birthday, so I always remember it. But yeah, 58. But he said, they came at the right time. One says that it was not really new. So she's okay. She has mentioned it's slow moving because of the actual I met Eugene last summer. Was the last time I met him. Was the last round of the layoffs back in yeah. So he was a good fun. Like that. Him as I yeah, but his aunt as well. He was the executive of Zanzibar. And yeah, so he was over back to me. No. So, but no, he was a good fun and he was over that boat and they're doing that up and yes, yeah, that's it. I'm going to grab some tea. It was good talking to you, Mike. Thank you. Well, for you.
Is there anything you're so much multinational? Is there anything because of it's kind of funny just because I've been documented.
Yeah.
as loud as possible. Okay, we're going to kick off now in 1 minute, just the last few people on the way in. Okay, I think that we might just actually start back just in the interest of time, so we do have the last few people coming in. But thank you all for coming back to join us. We are on our final panel discussion. As I mentioned previously, that we do have an award from beforehand. So I did check ChatGPT before I came in to see how I could make sure you're all in good form and all delighted about coming back. So it did say add a bit of humour. So I was going to say winner, winner, chicken dinner. Then I decided I'm not 6, so I'm not going to do that after all. I have our winner. So if Miss Claire Turrell would like to come to the stage, you've just won a €50 award. I did spot her outside having coffee, so I'm not sure if she's actually in yet. And if you're not Claire or you're too embarrassed to come up, I have it here for you. Right. Next up is our second panel discussion of the afternoon, how to prepare for a future with artificial intelligence. And I get to hand you over to our moderator, Peter Scott. You may recognise Peter as our keynote speaker from this morning's session. And again, just a reminder that Peter is a futurist, coach and a consultant, helping people from all walks of life understand and leverage artificial intelligence. He is a host to weekly podcast Artificial Intelligence in You, and his company Next Wave Institute coaches executives how to future-proof their careers and businesses. So thanks for joining us for the second time today, Peter. We're absolutely maxing that flight from Canada, and we were hoping that you will give us something that is better than the large language model answers, and you're going to ask even better questions. So with that, Peter, I'm going to hand it over to you to the rest of the panel, and thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone, to the last AI track event of the day. We have a distinguished and diverse and energetic panel here to answer the question of how to prepare for a future with AI. The format of this event is that I'll introduce everyone. They will introduce themselves then and give a little introduction to the topic, what's important about this to them. Then we will interleave questions from me and you all. So in intervals, I will look around and when I've got a question, then you have your hand up and I will call on you at that time. So the context for what we are doing here today is there's a lot of uncertainty about what the impacts of AI will be, but it's never too early to start preparing. The goal of the panel is to discuss what everyone in the Atlantec region should do collectively in order to prepare for a positive future in which we maximize the benefits of AI for the region as a whole. And so now I'm going to, I'll just introduce all the panelists by name first, and then we'll take them on their topic and what they want to tell you about themselves. So from Pioneer, we have Professor Baudelaire of the Insight Research Center, and Professor Michael Madden, University of Galway, Emir Munoz, Genesis, Laura Bodal, that we already met, Wilson Santini, and Brian Hanley, the bike frightening. Sorry, thank you. It's still operating on a couple of hours the last 2 days. So what I will now do is we'll go around everyone and ask you to say something about yourself and what you want to contribute to us on how to prepare for a future with AI. Paul.
Friends, yeah, Professor Bob Atlantec, which is a Dutch name, by the way. Sorry, hard to pronounce. I'm Professor of Data Analytics here at the university. I'm Deputy Director of the Data Science Institute here, but I'm also here in the capacity of the COPI in the Insight Center for Data Analytics, and I'm also a co-director of the SFRI Center for Research Training in AI, so different things. So am I also asked to say something now? Yeah, so I think this whole topic for me that is important is that there's been a lot of anxiety about AI, and I think we should calm down. Actually, we did calm down already. There was a lot of anxiety about a year ago. AI is just a tool, and as every tool in human society has good and bad sides, and we should just work in terms of doing more research, doing more development, doing regulation to minimize the negative aspects and to maximize the profits, I think.
Thank you. Mike.
So I'm Professor Michael Madden. I'm the established professor and head of School of Computer Science here in University of Galway. I also chair the Atlantec AI Forum that this session is linked to and organised by. And I suppose my key observation to start off in preparing for a future with AI is that, you know, as has been mentioned a few times during the day, there's a huge amount of development. The pace of development is so fast that it's impossible for us to try to keep up with it and to separate, as one of the speakers said, the kind of white noise from what's important. And I think, you know, what we can do collectively to help address that is communicate and learn from each other. So formal education plays a part in the university with our postgraduate programs and so on, and our research programs, but also meetups that we're holding in our AI forum, events like this in Atlantec. I think they're all very important for us to, as a community, share information, share with each other, as we saw in the previous session particularly, what works well, what to avoid. And I think that'll be how we can move together.
Thank you. Emir.
Hi, my name is Emir Munoz. I'm a senior manager in Genesis, looking into machine learning projects, covering predictive AI, the traditional machine learning, and then now also generative AI with many use cases around contact centers. So Genesis is basically a cloud provider solution for contact centers, and we process like around 70 billion interactions per year. That's roughly like 200 million per day. That's kind of like big data to me in a way. We cover phone calls, so Genesis will process all the phone calls that you send, emails, text messages, if you interact with chatbots, most of that technology will be covered by Genesis. So what I want to bring today is basically we have been, since a couple of years, transitioning into the fourth industrial revolution, basically, all brought by AI and intensified by AI and the need for data, right? We were sitting into the big data era for a while. Not much came out of it, but then AI and machine learning start making use of it, and you know all these algorithms are data hungry. So that's kind of like we need to work together and say like people, organizations, and governments trying to see how can we benefit from this and how can we regulate. There is no way for us to mitigate all the risk or trying to find data sets which are completely unbiased. We just need to know how to mitigate and what risks we are happy with and which ones are not.
Thank you. All right, Laura.
Hi, my name is Laura. I'm fortunately or unfortunately a lawyer, depends where you stand. I've been in privacy and data protection or data regulatory more generally close to 10 years now. I used to be a researcher at university, then went into more the company side, and then a lawyer full-time. So I've seen many sides of it. I remain as enthusiastic as ever, and what I'd like to observe is that we hear a lot that AI will hugely benefit humanity, but at the same time, I think we need to realize that humanity will hugely benefit AI. And we need to embrace it. Just think of the benefits that we get by speed and precision in fraud detection, healthcare. I mean, just look at these things, you see the benefits of AI. We can also immediately see the potential disadvantages. And I really think that human involvement or human touch is what can make a difference and bring nuance and accountability to the use of AI.
Thank you. And Brian.
Thank you, Peter. So my name is Brian Hadley. I am the CEO and founder of a company called Brightbeam, and we help organizations gain advantage through AI with a particular focus on helping organizations build their own AI. In the context of the conversation this afternoon, while I spend most of my working life working with large enterprises, the context of today for me is helping SME organizations. This area, to my fellow panelists, is moving so quickly. There's a danger that SMEs may get left behind. I think that, as to use the word collaboration as well, I think that there is an amazing ecosystem on the Atlantic coast from multinationals, from our own homegrown organizations, amazing educational institutions, and through deliberate collaboration, I think that we can help SME organizations not fall behind. On the flip side, I think we can help SME organizations really thrive. So yeah, that's something that kind of has grabbed a hold of me and I'm pretty passionate about.
Well, thank you. All right, I'm going to ask this first question to everyone, and you can take it in whatever order you want. Someone who's burning it, you can go first, and then we will just eventually work our way to everyone. So I'd like to know how you see the roles of and the relationships between academia and industry and government shifting in the region in order to maximize the benefits to the region of AI. Who wants to go first?
I can go first. So I think there are a couple of dimensions in there. One is the speed, right? Like Brian mentioned, like every company now wants to release something around generative AI because again, it's good for marketing, it will bring more customers. And sometimes they don't stop much to look into the risk or to look into the actual research of different biases. And even for biases, like if you look into literature, all the academic work, there's still not consensus on how to actually mitigate all the biases. So biases will always be there, but you need to first identify them and understand. So that's where academia can help, right? And building the frameworks, building the whole research area, and then industry can benefit from that, of course, and can also contribute with data, which is like sometimes lack of actual real-world data in the academic world. And governments, of course, needs to be that umbrella that kind of regulate all that thing, but interacting with academia and industry.
So you're saying academia is particularly well positioned to help mitigate bias in this respect?
Yes, I would say it's kind of like the time. So industry is trying to focus on different objectives, like how to deliver software into the masses, and academia can just focus on the individual products.
Thank you. Who wants to go for this question?
Yeah, I think from one of the things that concerns me about the government is that they're not going to move quick enough. We all know there are social issues in the country around access to housing, there's issues around access to the proper medical care, there are social issues, whatever they are. And if the government was of a mind and really leaned into the power and capabilities of what AI can bring to citizen services, I think it can really transform a lot of these things. Like an example would be in the housing agency. I think it takes 9 months or something to get an application for a vacant home renter or something like that. And the reason it takes so long is because it's the lack of civil service to make a judgment on the application. That shouldn't take 9 months. That should take 9 minutes, if not 9 seconds, because it is a set of rules where we can demonstrate the evidence that we're supposed to demonstrate with those rules. The AI platforms, they have eyes, they have ears, they have mouth, they have hands, they have a brain. We can train them to do a lot of these things. So I would be very enthusiastic about the government really pushing the capabilities that this technology can bring. I think there's huge opportunity for academia to get involved in that, and I think that there's big opportunities for the SME sector to also get involved, and Ireland to be a test bed of some of the things that we can do, and then export this stuff internationally. I think it is. I'm obviously an AI optimist. I think the opportunities are mind-boggling.
Well, how do you incentivize? How does business incentivize the government to learn how to move quickly? One assumes that if it was that appealing, they would have moved in that direction already.
Yeah, I think the truth of it is we're just at the beginning. I think there's a danger. I suffer for myself of the curse of knowledge, where you think people know what you know. Something I saw recently was the percentage of individuals in the professional work that have used the more advanced models, the stuff they have to pay for. It's less than 10%. So I think that, like, if we think of it that the government want to do the right thing, and then it's a matter of helping get them that direction. I just don't think people know. And we have to help them know. We have to educate people.
Thank you. Who wants to go to this question next?
Yeah, just on the topic of the role of academia. So specifically, I think, again, in regulation, so academia has a big role. And not only computer science, actually, I think, social sciences have a very big role in combination with computer science and data science to look at things from different sides, from the technical and the social side, and bring that together and inform organizations like the EU and the government and local governments on how to approach these things. And I think this is getting more and more important because we're now developing tools. Like I said, it's just a tool, but it's a very sophisticated tool. Not only, it's a tool that starts to resemble us, right? So, and because it resembles us, it becomes more and more important to also include insights from psychology, from sociology. And so in that sense, I think academia has a big role.
And in many quarters, the academia is renowned for being siloed with respect to the different schools. In this region, do the schools of social science and psychology and so forth, do they interact with the technical side to the extent that would facilitate the cooperation we're talking about, the interdisciplinary cooperation?
Yeah, maybe Michael wants to jump in also, but yes, there is definitely collaboration also through the Insight Centre, for instance, that I'm involved with, which is not only in Galway, it's Brighton basically. There's definitely a growing connection between computer science, data science, and things like social science, etc. But also here at the university.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, for example, in our postgraduate thought programs in artificial intelligence, we have courses taught by the School of Law on Law and AI and the School of Philosophy on Ethics and AI. And so, because what we see is, and likewise as Paul said, through research, there's a huge amount of interdisciplinary collaboration across computer science, data science, engineering, medicine, as well as all of the humanities. I think it's a strength perhaps of the region, it's a maybe small region, a sense of community, a sense of neighbourhood, that people are maybe not too siloed in collaborating and working with each other.
What do you do next in leveraging that? If you could throw some kind of spanner in there to shake things up, what would you do?
Well, I think to really, we want to make the West of Ireland, I suppose, a place that can really benefit from AI, and so we have to identify opportunities to make this a great place to live, great places to work, grow the industry. I think I know we spoke, there's been, Brian's comments about the government can be slow reacting. I would think government agencies are actually very much on top of this. I see the Irish Development Authority, Enterprise Ireland, so these are government-funded agencies, and they're working quite hard to really boost industry in this region. And for example, they would have interacted with us 7-8 years ago, as what he spoke about earlier in the day, to say we need to have masters in AI that we can point to say to reassure companies that the educational skills are here. So that was identified at an early stage. Universities responded very quickly, very positively. And then, in parallel with that, there's been all sorts of research, which is multidisciplinary research, bringing together all these different stakeholders.
Thank you. And Laura, there's a lot on the table with respect to government and regulation. If you want to take that up, or if you want to go in another direction.
Yes, thank you. And actually, the thing I would notice is, from a business perspective, if there is one area where we already see this intersection, because it has been there long before AI, it's the healthcare sector. Because we have ethics, we have data, we have rights, we have guardrails, we have risks. And we've brought together academia, we've brought together commercial companies, and then often the government as well. So I do think actually if you put that together with the west of Ireland, where there's a lot of medtech, it might be an incubator to show other industries. Like, we've done it for years, and now we're applying it to AI. Maybe that's an example for the rest of the world to see.
So you brought forth healthcare there as an example of something that's like a microcosm of all the issues of AI, privacy, and so forth. Do you think that was the hardest one? Do you think there's another one out there that would be harder to tackle, or knocked off the most difficult one first?
No, I would say law enforcement is going to be a very tricky one. I don't think necessarily the heaviest lifting on AI and ethics is going to be in the commercial sector. And I think that also, well, as a society, we have considered the more heavily regulated industries, insurance, finance, that those are also going to maybe be better prepared because they're used to being regulated, but also face a lot of issues and have to come up with creative ways to deal with them.
Thank you. Be honest, when she said law enforcement, how many of you thought of RoboCop? yeah, I see, okay. So, does anyone in the audience have a question at this point? Yes, can we get a mic down here? Thank you.
Hi. Peter, I love your earlier presentation, and Laura as well. So I have a question for both of you. So first of all, Laura, you are into this regulatory area where you are covering, let's say, EU as of now, from the IT, the AI Act, right? But here comes the question where you have hand in hand with software or IT, right? So when we talk about AI Act, that too for EU, let's say, right? It's just limited to AI part, not to the rest of the software which been happening from ages, right? Now, what about that? Who takes the responsibility about it? Because there's nothing goes without software and hardware which been existing always, right? So who takes that responsibility? Because it's not just EU, US, UK, there's the rest of the world who is also involved with software. Something coming from there, right? Let's say something we developed in Asia, and being, coming and is being sleeping there and dormant, and suddenly wakes up by the AI, right? You never know how it's evolving. So I know it's a very vast area for you, but my question is around, is it more a reactive approach, or is very proactively you are able to control this? Because it's a great idea to control, but then at what level? And where, I would like to, quote what Peter said earlier, right, about the conscience. So people do not understand the conscience of AI. And at one point we want to control it, at the same time we are empowering it continuously, like by feeding a lot of data there. So both the thoughts, right? I feel that we are making AI more and more powerful, but whether we are able to control it or not, what are your thoughts about this? And to what extent?
Thank you. Did you get the point?
Yeah, so the question was, we have the AI Act. It is to be discussed reactive or proactive approach to regulating AI. Do we have something similar for software and hardware? In particular, there might be software or hardware producers in other regions that are now waking up and thinking, do we have to take into account regulations for those as well? Yes. Software and hardware are regulated in the EU. There are specific rules on bringing software into the EU. I would say, based on my experience, AI and software are very commonly together. I don't know if there's many applications of AI that don't involve software. Same for hardware. So there is already existing legislation. The component that the AI Act adds is that if you're building AI and building it into software that is already regulated, by default you become a high-risk AI. So you'll have to comply with very more prescriptive requirements. Does that address your question?
Can I just ask though, I mean, the definition of AI itself is notoriously broad. Is the EU AI Act draw a sufficiently sharp line between AI and other software?
No, and that's quite deliberate. The idea for the EU was to make it technology neutral, and the fear was that if it's defined in a very narrow way, considering how quickly things can develop these days, we might not be able to capture what is coming, and the incentive for the Act is to protect consumers. So we've introduced a very broad definition that will be able to capture what's to come in 10 years and 20 years.
Thank you. And the second part of your question was, I think, about how AI evolves into more advanced stages, like we might call consciousness. I once defined the term conscious artificial intelligence about 10 years ago, and when pressed to define it, I said, well, when we have software that you program by arguing with it, as opposed to typing out code, that would fit the definition. And we actually seem to have that now with the prompt engineering. But then I think I'm going to pull the usual one and say, no, I don't want to call that conscious just yet, although it is blurring those boundaries. But I think you're asking perhaps about what we do with approaching the public attitudes to it. And I want to bounce that to the panel because this is in the context of this region. So who wants to speak to the prevailing social narratives that might intersect with that question around here? A question?
I'm not sure I get exactly what the question was.
To what extent will questions about the advanced capabilities of AI that attract the general public's attention, because it looks like this more alive kind of entity, to what extent will that start driving public conversation and stories here that you want to be involved in or manage?
So I'm probably not going to answer that exact question, because I think that some of those questions are so far ahead, and the things that we can do now that are useful now, we should start doing those things now. I think the way that you described the legislation and that it's trying to frame, and it's best principles-based and that kind of structure is the way to do it. I do honestly feel that sometimes we're getting a bit lost in these conversations about, these are very important topics about ethics and biases and all that type of stuff, but what I'm not hearing enough about is utility and the things that this thing can do, and the things that it can do now. And any stories that come on the radio or on the media is when things go wrong. Because people want, we have a desire to point at the things that are going wrong. But we're not pointing at all the things that are going right. And it's really, really important that we understand what it can do now and that we begin to embrace and lean into those things. Because the other stuff is just holding us back. There is no organisation that's sitting down to do whatever they need to do that is not considering bias, ethics, because this is their business. This is before AI, they're considering how do we do what we're going to do correctly. So I get a bit, I don't know what the right word is, a bit frustrated that the dialogue is too orientated around these more kind of esoteric ideas rather than they need to be spoken about, but the balance, I believe, is wrong, and I think we should be focused a lot more on practical. Because I think those people in this audience can start doing stuff that can fundamentally impact their business in a very positive way.
Yeah, no, I basically agree. I think we should just get started and implement things and do things and make it useful. But at the same time, we should be aware that if things seem to work, there may still be things that are not working perfectly because it's a completely new thing. And one thing that I think many people maybe don't realize always is that LLMs are very, Western, US, European driven. So just on the language, right, all the data there, that's all US, European language basically, with some English data from other parts of the world, including my own country, probably the Netherlands. But there's lots of stuff there that is not represented there, right? So just a very simple question to ChatGPT on a very simple thing will give you a US European view, and that's not what we want. And that's so it may work in many different contexts, but it doesn't actually work fully as it should be. So and that's where academia comes in. So we have a role in research in academia to look at that and teach our students about these kind of things. So that's so that's the role of business, of academia, or government, and we all have different roles. And the best thing is to talk to each other and see how can we bring these things together.
Thank you. Okay, so my next question is for Mike. As a professor of computer science, you teach programming and other aspects of computer science, which I'm very familiar with myself, being on the receiving end of that some years ago. And I've spoken to people in Silicon Valley who told me, well, a year ago they were saying that 60% of the code was being written by large language models at that point, and they were projecting 100% within a foreseeable future. So in an environment like that, do we need to keep studying computer science, or is that a solved problem?
It's a great question, but I believe absolutely yes, we do need to keep studying computer science. The way I look at it is that if I look over the last kind of 50 years of computer science, software engineering, computer scientists have spent that last 50 years trying unsuccessfully to put themselves out of a job. They used to first write in machine code, and that was too slow, too hard, so they developed low-level programming languages, and they were, okay, but a bit too slow, so they developed high-level programming languages, and then they developed no-code, low-code kind of technologies, and then as we started doing web development, there was lots of, graphical user interface and drag-and-drop type of things, always generating code and moving down through the stack. And I think we can view co-pilot type tools that are embedded in compilers and doing code completion as the next iteration of failed attempts to automate away our jobs. And the reason why all of these attempts have failed is not because we haven't built great tools, but it's because the more code we've been able to write, the more need that we have discovered for code in the world. And so, you know, I'm sure if you go back to think about how much code did there need to be written back in the 1980s, you could probably do that with very few software engineers now. But the world's demand for software has hugely increased. And I think that it's much more likely that, you know, what will happen next is there'll be a great new ushering in of new ways of people casually developing software applications, small apps and all sorts of things, and with lots of support from AI tools to make things work quickly and efficiently. I can occasionally think of, you know, I'm doing something and go, God, I wish I had a little app on my phone that could do that. And if I could just sort of cast that idea out to a ChatGPT like interface an hour later and run it, I think that would be great, and I don't think that would take away. And what it does mean is that for us as educators, we have to think always, and we always have had to think about this, is how do we teach up and down that stack of tools and make sure that we you know, cover some of the fundamental principles as well as covering the kind of high-level toolings. You know, so still in computer science courses, we need to teach students a little bit about, you know, circuits and about machine code before we start moving into high-level languages. And I think we still have to continue and just think about the balance.
Well, and that stack, as you say, has been evolving over the teaching of computer science over decades. And when I was doing it, more heavyweight towards machine code and architectures, and now more heavyweight towards high-level languages. But if you're going to be sending students out into a world where software is developed with the great assistance of large language models, and that prompting is done with natural language, how do you preserve the rigor of computer science and that when the interface looks like just telling it what you want, like the boss would do, and he goes, why do you computer program it?
Well, I think, you know, then it'll come down to, you know, you need to preserve that rigor, you need to sort of cover, as I said, all those levels of depth in the stack, so that people can understand the outputs they're getting from these tools and make sense of them. You know, if we go back to Catherine's area of Vallejo, I don't think, you know, for a highly potentially risky area like that, you know, that teams would be satisfied with purely automated code that hasn't been very carefully human reviewed. So I think there'll be more peer review, more kind of pair programming with AI, those kinds of approaches.
So more software means more jobs for software developers.
That's certainly been the trend of the years in the past.
Is there any question? No, there's right at the back.
I just might just follow up with that question, just to fill in that I think one of the things that software engineering as a profession is going to change, to your point, Mike. And I wonder if we're going to move more from a deterministic type of approach to a probabilistic type of approach, where the software engineering that we're teaching, we need to be teaching people how, like, we talk about there's very few people that understand how to build these large language models, and all these guys that are working in DeepMind and Mistral and all this stuff. That's what we need to be teaching people. We need to be getting into a bit more of the deep maths around this. I think that there will always be a need for engineers. Will software engineering be the first-class citizen? I actually doubt it. I think it's probably more that's going to be machine learning and probabilistic engineering that will become first-class citizen. I also think that you're going to see a lot of SaaS solutions that are custom SaaS for businesses rather than software that you rent. I think the pendulum is going to swing where enterprises are going to be building their own SaaS solutions, and the reason for that is because of the productivity gains for software that software engineering is going to enable. It's not only the software engineers, it's the testers, it's the business analysts, it's all of those types of roles. Just the productivity it's explosive.
Thank you. You can actually see the interplay between academia and industry working itself out on the stage. Question?
Thank you very much for your insights. Something which I have been missing during this conversation is the impact of AI worldwide. It was very nice that a panelist mentioned US and UK and how large language models have their bias. So my thought was that at the moment we already see an economical difference between the developed world and the developing world. And then in the developed world we have a lot of technology which is going at a very fast pace, and then we are trying to catch up. Will this technology and AI, will it increase that gap between the developed one and the developing world? And what will this mean for the developing world? Will this gap decrease? Will it increase? Will the developing world be ready for that? We are talking about the developed world. So are there any thoughts about that? Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a great question. Who wants to take that?
Yeah, so, well, yeah, it's a very important issue, problem, maybe, going forward. So I think there are two sides to this. So on the one hand, like I indicated already, we need to be very careful not to impose one culture onto the rest of the globe, because there's simply these very large language models based on data coming from one direction. So that's one thing. The other thing is catching up. They're a bit more positive because you know what you see now with AI, with LLMs, but just the internet already. I mean, and mobile phones and all of this, I think, have contributed to you know, globally people being able to catch up, and information is accessible from everywhere to everybody. So I think also with AI, I think that's only going to help. So I don't know, a bit of mixed views there, but I would be interested to see what others.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely a threat, but also an opportunity. So a threat because like most of the initial language models were built on crawling the web. You need to look into which language is represented in that web. So it will be mostly English, Spanish, and then there's a long tail of like all the small languages underrepresented. So there is that risk and then opportunities, because like there's opportunity for all the different people that feel underrepresented to really come together and do something about it. So I was like, I think a couple of months ago, there was, well, from last year, there was a collaboration across people where people from different minority languages were contributing data, right? And that data can be used to then train models that can work for their use cases, for their environment, for their culture. So it's opportunity and threat at the same time, I would say.
Does that answer the question? Thank you. Emir, maybe you could take this in now to some practical terms, what organizations should pay attention to when they're implementing AI machine learning solutions.
Yeah, I think first, like, AI provides you problems and tools to solve those problems. So really understanding the use cases, the business use case, understanding the expected outcome and how to assess that, how to evaluate it, can really help even defining if you need to use AI or not, right? Even if you use machine learning. Like some things could be just like a rule-based system and you get a solution. And some other things will require learning, will require like some time maybe. So in that sense, like someone was mentioning before, right, there are multiple stakeholders. It's not only developers, product managers, but you need to involve like privacy, security, early on in the whole process, in the whole software development life cycle, because now AI systems, they are, again, software, so they are part of this life cycle, and they have some specific needs, of course. Like, you need to understand when you deploy a model, when this model needs to be retrained, like the refresh part of that. You need to understand when the model is failing, or when it's producing biased answers, biased predictions. So there is like kind of like it's an iterative process at the end. There is not like a static recipe that can be applied at the moment, I would say. It's just like a learning curve while, things kind of mature in time.
Right, and if someone in business is listening to this with a jaundiced ear and says, well, look, you can say that about everything, why is AI special? Is there something about AI that means we have to pay more attention than usual to these kind of issues in development?
I think it's like getting back to the problem you're trying to solve. It's understanding for what you're using the AI tool. Like what's the power that it has. If it has the whole decision making and you cannot explain how the system arrived to that solution, then you're in trouble. Right? If you're able to explain, like for even legal reasons, trying to come up with a description of like what are the different steps, that the models follow it to arrive into that prediction, that can be something that can provide to the end users, because at the end, in many cases, that's affecting people's life.
Thank you. Well, I think we have time for one more question, which I want to put to Laura. How can we expect AI to change risk management, both positively and negatively?
I think there's the first one I want to call out is workload management. So I work in an industry which basically is risk management. And a lot of that involves gathering data, analyzing it, and coming to a conclusion. And basically what AI does the groundwork and leaves you time for the critical thinking. And that is not job displacement, that is workload management. So I think that's a positive development of risk management. It also allows to increase precision. So all of that is a positive change. But as fact, AI does not think as a human. It might not take into account things that we think are pertinent and valuable and should be considered. And that's where the human risk managers come in. And that's where they need to have the oversight. So when people say, well, the legal industry or risk management, for sure they will be displaced. No, they will reorient their jobs and be able to focus on critical thinking. And lastly, to tie that back to the conversation on how can the industry and academia work together, I would say train them in critical thinking. That is something that is going to be a skill for the future, because AI will not exist without human review.
And critical thinking can come in at any level of education. Well, we're out of time. I want you to join me in thanking our panelists for taking on some very challenging questions here and delivering superb answers to them.
Very close to wrapping up, but thank you to the panel. It was fantastic to get such a broad perspective from academia through to law and industry. And certainly learning how to lean in while minding out for guardrails. Thanks, Laura, for making sure we're conscious of that. And I do believe to one of the points that we are preparing our students for jobs that don't even exist yet. So in terms of understanding the fundamentals of computer science and that critical thinking, it's extremely important that we are teaching that skill set to all. As we wrap up, we have another small ask. So there is one small other QR code. This is actually an iTag AI forum one that we were asking you to do. We are reviewing the option of setting up consultation hours. So we're going to use the audience here to gauge whether there's an interest in that. And one, if you're interested, what you'd like us to pursue it, and if we were to pursue it, what areas would you be interested in getting some consultation on? We've got a lot of people with different skill sets on the iTag AI forum, so just interested to understand that. So while you're having a quick look at that, if you want to, it's going to the next slide as well. I'm just going to mention just a few of our previous events that we've had, and that's just this year alone. We had a very interesting talk on understanding AI law. So we've already had a talk on that this year, which was very popular. And then we had another one with should companies allow employees to use large language models? And I think from that perspective, it was very mixed bag of views. Again, as you might have seen today, is from some absolutely totally speeds up everybody's jobs to cautiously using it so as not to stifle creativity. So jump to the next slide. We have some upcoming events. So in September, we're going to have an AI conference with Tech Ireland. So that's going to be September. And then we have our flagship iTag AI Summit in November. I've already mentioned earlier that just keep an eye out for the AI ethics training. It is something that we're pursuing following from the different conversations and certainly some of the previous events we've seen. And as always, we have our continuous AI speaker series ongoing. So just keep an eye out for that. We don't have anyone planned right now, but they will be coming up. So last slide. Yes, so finally, I would like to thank our guest speakers today and the panel members and the other panel members that are still down there today for your wonderful insights. Thanks to all of you for attending today and being so interactive and asking the questions. It does make a big difference to all of us up here. And a big shout out to the committee and the Atlantec Festival sponsors for their continued support, and thanks especially to the staff and management of the University of Galway today for hosting this event. So I hope you all have a lovely evening, and we might send some of you over in College Bar for some pizza. So thank you, everybody.